Hi, and welcome to DrupalBrief. This is an AI-generated summary of another video, podcast, or blog post. If you want to learn more about what's being discussed here, then please go check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 open-source development and hosting platform. It has all the functionality of the expensive platforms, but at very affordable prices. If you're looking for a new hosting provider, contact us for a demo before you get locked in. Okay, that's it. Make sure to click subscribe, and here we go.
Okay, let's kick things off. We're doing a deep dive today, looking closely at just one thing. The WeeklyDrop newsletter, issue 682, that's the one from May 15th, 2025, put together by Bob Kepford.
That's right. Yeah, think of it as like a snapshot. Mid-May in the Drupal world. And our mission really is just to sift through this one issue, pull out the most important bits, the interesting stuff about, Drupal development, site building, the community.
And basically help you get up to speed fast on what's been happening.
Exactly. Because this newsletter, it covers a lot of ground. You get everything from like deep core code stuff right up to community news and jobs.
Yeah, it's a great mix. With Drupal, it always feels like there's this constant juggle, right? Keeping things running now versus building what's next. We'll definitely see that theme here.
We absolutely will.
Yeah.
And a good place to start seeing that tension is, right inside Drupal core itself.
All right, let's jump into that core section then. The first thing I noticed, or things, I guess, were these mentions of deprecations. Additional update manager deprecations, and then custom keys in section are deprecated. Now, if you're following Drupal, but maybe not, coding every single day, why are deprecations such a big deal? And seeing a couple listed here, What does that signal?
So deprecation is basically Drupal core saying, hey, developers, this way we used to do this, it's on its way out. It might not disappear tomorrow, but in some future version, poof, it's gone.
Okay.
Seeing multiple deprecations, especially for things like the update manager or even, like you said, the fundamental session global in PHP, it really signals a strong push to modernize, to clean up the code base, get rid of older patterns.
So it's more than just code tweaks. It's like a strategic cleanup. But that means work for developers, yeah.
Right.
If your custom code uses something that's deprecated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to change your intent before that deprecated part is actually removed. Otherwise, you update Drupal later, maybe a major version, maybe even a minor one, and boom, your site breaks.
Ouch.
So yeah, paying attention to these isn't just like good practice. It's pretty essential if you want to keep your site running smoothly long term.
Okay, sticking with core, this one seems pretty interesting, especially on the front end. Contextual links now use VanillaJS instead of Backbone.js. That sounds like a fairly major shift in how some of those interactive bits work.
It is, yeah. Backbone.js, it's an older JavaScript framework. Moving to VanillaJS, which is just plain standard JavaScript, is really part of Drupal's bigger plan to rely less on external frameworks for basic UI stuff.
Okay.
Often that means the code for those specific things gets lighter, faster, and it just aligns better with what modern web browsers can do natively.
And speaking of faster, lighter, there's this note, system-based split into smaller conditionally loaded libraries. How does that help? Performance, I'm guessing?
Yeah, definitely performance. It's all about efficiency. So instead of your browser having to download and process one huge file of JavaScript and CSS for everything the old system-based library covered,
right.
Now it's broken up.
Yeah.
Your browser only grabs the specific little bits of code it actually needs for the elements on the page you're currently looking at. Less stuff to download, less stuff to process equals faster pages. Makes sense.
It does. Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still practical. This is for site builders. Views blocks items per page setting can no longer be none. That feels like a very direct change to how you set up, one of the most common things you build, a views block.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah, before, you might have set items per page to none as a kind of workaround to just show everything.
Display all results.
Exactly. This change removed that specific option. So site builders now need to use, proper pagination or maybe set the limit really, really high if they genuinely need to show a ton of items at once. It's a small detail, but definitely one to know about when configuring those blocks.
Okay. And then looking forward a bit, the newsletter also flags some new or experimental things coming down the pipe. Experimental Symfony mailer module, new config action to add a component to a layout, new recipe unpack composer plugin, and also PHP 11 support. What's the story with this mix?
Well, these are kind of glimpses into where Drupal's heading, right?
Yeah.
And also just ongoing maintenance. The Symfony mailer module, for instance, that points towards potentially replacing Drupal's older email system with a much more modern, widely used PHP library. That's a good thing.
Okay.
The config action for layouts. That suggests they're still tweaking the site building experience, probably making it easier or more powerful to manage how pages are structured. And the recipe unpack composer plugin that's tied to the whole recipes idea.
Right, recipes. That's about making it easier to install specific types of Drupal sites, like prepackaged setups.
Exactly. Using Composer, which is to remind folks, is the standard tool now in the PHP world for managing all the code libraries your site depends on. So this plugin helps make that recipe process smoother.
Got it. And PHP Unit 11 support. That sounds like developer tooling.
It is. PHP Unit is the main framework Drupal developers use to write automated tests for their code. Supporting the latest version, PHP Unit 11, just means Drupal core development is keeping up with modern testing tools and practices. That's fundamental for ensuring the code is stable and, high quality.
So, wow, okay. Even just digging into that core section, you get a really clear sense of things. Drupal's actively modernizing its code, dealing with old stuff through deprecations, making architectural changes like with VanillaJS, while also adding new features, improving workflows for developers with things like PHP Unit support and recipes, and for site builders with layout improvements. It really feels like a project pushing forward while cleaning up its past.
That's the constant balancing act, yeah.
And speaking of the past impacting the present, we really have to talk about upgrades and security, specifically the whole Drupal 7 situation.
Yes, Drupal 7, end of life. Still a major challenge for a lot of people, and yeah, this issue definitely touches on how the community and companies are trying to help.
Right. First up, there's a sponsored message from Tag1 for their D7’s service. They talk about offering proven post-EOL support, focusing specifically on security for D7 sites. And they mention flexible support plans for temporary or long-term support to help people avoid potential disruptions.
Yeah, this is super important. If you're still running a Drupal 7 site and you haven't upgraded, well, once a version hits end of life, the official Drupal security team, the volunteers, they stop providing free security patches.
Which leaves sites vulnerable.
Exactly. Wide open, potentially. So commercial support, like what Tag1 offers, steps in to fill that gap. They provide those crucial security patches, which can buy you time to plan an upgrade. Or maybe keep the site secure if upgrading just isn't feasible right away. It's about managing risk, really.
And then for those who are ready to make the jump, or at least thinking about it, there's a sponsored article from Opticy. The title is pretty clear. From Drupal 7 to 11, your upgrade path starts here, free audit. They're offering a free site audit to help map out a clear, cost-effective path to Drupal 11, and they note they're a Drupal Diamond certified partner.
And that kind of service is really valuable too, because upgrading from Drupal 7, particularly up to Drupal 10 or 11, it's usually not just a simple update. It's often a major project.
Right, involves rebuilding things, migrating content.
Yeah, potentially re-architecting parts of the site, rebuilding themes, custom modules, handling data migration carefully. So getting an audit, especially a free one, helps you understand what's actually involved for your specific site. It gives you a realistic plan and hopefully avoids nasty surprises down the road. Planning is everything for a smooth upgrade.
Definitely. And whether you're on 10 or 11 or even 7 with that paid support, just keeping things up to date day to day is crucial. The releases section here lists Drupal 10.4.7 and Drupal 11.1.7.
Yep. Applying these point releases quickly, it's probably the single most important basic security step you can take. They contain bug fixes, sure, but more importantly, they contain security fixes. If you don't apply them, you're leaving known holes open. It's just basic website hygiene.
We also see some popular contrib modules listed, like Commerce PayPal and Commerce Stripe getting updates.
Right, and that's a good reminder, too. It's not just Drupal core you need to keep updated. Key contributed modules, especially ones handling sensitive stuff like payments, they also get updates for security and new features. Got to keep those patched, too.
So yeah, this whole section really hammers home that staying secure and managing that technical debt, it takes constant vigilance with releases, but also strategic planning, particularly if you're still on D7. Lots to think about.
Absolutely. It's a big focus for a lot of people in the ecosystem right now.
Okay, let's switch things up a bit. Let's look at articles and tutorials, exploring new ways to build things, and also touching on emerging tech. AI seems to be popping up quite a bit in this issue.
Yeah, AI is definitely weaving its way into the Drupal conversation more and more. You see it in a few different spots here.
Yeah, like there's a Freelog blog piece on sustainable business and AI, then a Golem's Jabby article talking about an AI framework in Drupal, and even a tutorial title that made me look twice, hacking the AI module in Drupal CMS. What do you make of AI showing up in these different ways, like strategy, actual framework, and then really hands-on tinkering all in one newsletter?
Well, I think it shows the Drupal community is moving beyond just talking about AI in theory. They're starting to figure out the practical side. An AI framework, that could mean standard ways to plug AI services into Drupal for things like maybe analyzing content, generating text, automating tasks.
Interesting.
The sustainable business angle. Maybe that's looking at how AI could help Drupal shops or their clients work smarter, or maybe create new kinds of value. And hacking the AI module, well, that just sounds like someone's rolling up their sleeves and figuring out what you can actually do with the current tools, getting their hands dirty.
Sounds like fun, actually. Now, separate from AI, but still strategic, the newsletter mentions the Drupal Starshot blog, an article titled Marketplace Shareout #4, Building Trust, Governance, and Real-World Value. Starshot itself is a pretty major initiative, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Starshot's goal is basically to make Drupal much easier to evaluate and use, especially for people who aren't deep technical experts, kind of broadening its appeal. So discussions about building trust, governance, and real-world value, those are absolutely key. It's about proving that Drupal, maybe more out of the box, can be a reliable, powerful choice for building valuable stuff online.
Makes sense. Then we have a more back-to-basics article from Previous Next. 3 features for creating a great website experience. Always good to remember the fundamentals.
Right. Yeah. Amidst all this shiny new tech and strategy talk, you still need to know how to actually build a good website that people find useful. Core principles.
And speaking of useful knowledge, the tutorials section always looks like a great resource for learning specific skills. We see one from Manclu on smart menu links, Drupal navigation with the power of views.
Yeah. Using views to build dynamic menus. That's a really common requirement, creating menus that change based on context or user roles. So a tutorial on how to do that well. Super useful for lots of site builders and developers.
Other tutorials mentioned cover things like exposing your API in Drupal from SpecB, using Autocomplete Deluxe in Drupal CMS from WebWash, and a broader topic on the ins and outs of successful content migration.
Yeah, those hit on really common challenges. You need to expose data for a mobile app or another system. You need an API. Want to make complex forms easier to fill out. Autocomplete helps. Got an old site or moving platforms? Content migration is usually a headache, so tips are always good.
And there's also a sponsored tutorial here for an automated testing kit for Drupal. It talks about using tools like Playwright or Cypress and how it helps kickstart your testing and improves sites' reliability by catching bugs early.
Oh, this is hugely important. With Drupal core changing, contrib modules updating all the time, you just can't rely only on clicking around manually to test everything. It's impossible.
Right.
Automated testing is becoming essential. So tools or kits that help you get started with frameworks like Playwright or Cypress, they make it easier to build that safety net to catch problems, especially regressions, before they affect users. It's really a mark of a mature professional development process these days.
So yeah, looking at these articles and tutorials, it really spans the gamut, doesn't it? From exploring cutting-edge stuff like AI and strategic directions like Starshot, right down to practical guides for everyday tasks and essential best practices like automated testing, shows the breadth of activity.
It really does. Covers everything from the future vision to the daily grind.
Okay, zooming out one last time then. Let's touch on the broader Drupal community ecosystem that's reflected here. The events, the jobs, the resources that keep it all going.
Yeah, absolutely. The community is what makes Drupal, well, Drupal.
And a big piece of news. Secure your spot at DrupalCon Vienna 2025. Registration now open. DrupalCon, that's the main event, right? The big one.
Oh, yeah. That's the flagship. It's where people from all over the world involved in Drupal get together. There are sessions, workshops, coding sprints, tons of networking.
Yeah.
It's where you really feel the pulse of the project and connect with people. So announcing registration opening, that's a big deal on the community calendar.
Then there's the podcast section. Always a good way to hear community voices. It mentions Talking Drupal, #502, their first TD Cafe with Martin and Jake, and significantly, Talking Drupal, #501-500 with Dries 501, episode 500, and they got Dries Biter, the founder. That's quite a milestone.
Huge milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah, community podcasts like Talking Drupal, they're so valuable. They offer this regular, easy way to stay plugged in, hear different viewpoints, just feel part of the conversation. Hitting 500 episodes is amazing dedication, and having Dries on for it just underscores that connection between the project's origins and the community today.
And for people looking for work or companies looking to hire, the jobs section is obviously key. points to jobs.drupal.org and lists some featured jobs.
Right. And those featured job titles, they give you a little snapshot of what skills are hot right now. We see full stack Drupal engineer, lead Drupal developer, and DevOps full stack developer mentioned for US-based roles.
Yeah, CTUS, US generally.
It confirms there's still strong demand for experienced folks who can handle the whole stack, front end, back end, maybe lead a team, and also manage the infrastructure, the deployment pipelines. DevOps skills seem pretty consistently in demand.
And that connects back to the technical stuff we talked about earlier, right? You need people who understand those core changes, who know Composer, maybe who can set up automated testing.
Exactly. The jobs reflect the actual technologies and practices being used day to day.
And then just a lighter touch of the ecosystem. There's sponsored gear for developers, t-shirts from Fourth of Dev, including Drupal and WeeklyDrop designs. It's kind of a fun aspect of the community identity.
It is. It's part of the culture, right? Showing your support, that shared enthusiasm for the tools you use.
And speaking of support, the newsletter itself mentions ways to donate via Bitcoin or PayPal. A good reminder that these valuable community resources, like the WeeklyDrop itself, often depend on that kind of community backing to keep operating.
Yeah, it mirrors the whole open source ethos, really. Contributions, whether code or time or money, they fuel the entire ecosystem.
So reflecting on this one issue, it's pretty amazing how much ground it covers. We went from deep technical changes in core to the really practical pressures of upgrades in security like D7 EOL. We saw discussions around AI, strategic initiatives like Starshot, lots of practical learning through tutorials on everything from views to APIs to testing, and then felt the community's energy through events, podcasts, and the job market.
Yeah, our goal was really to just distill that, to pull out those connections and give you a sense of the Drupal landscape as it looked in mid-May 2025, all from this one source.
Well, hopefully this deep dive gave you some useful insights and helped you get informed quickly. Thanks for joining us for this exploration.
Thank you.
And just to leave you with a final thought, based on everything we've unpacked today, with Drupal constantly evolving its core, pushing strategic initiatives like Starshot, exploring new tech like AI, and still dealing with fundamentals like security and upgrades, what part of this whole dynamic picture feels most important or maybe most exciting to you right now? Where do you think you might want to dive deeper yourself next?
Okay, we're done. To close off this podcast, I just wanted to remind you that this brief was a fully AI-generated summary, and we take no credit for the original content. If you want to learn more, then check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 open-source development and hosting platform. It has all the functionality of the expensive platforms, but at very affordable prices. If you're looking for a new hosting provider, contact us for a demo before you get locked in. And if you like this podcast, hit subscribe, post a link on social media, and recommend it to 2 friends. That's it. See you next time. Bye for now.